Mount Cook Alpine salmon is recognised as an industry leader in sustainable aquaculture. The vertically integrated company uses existing infrastructure, geology, climate and Kiwi ingenuity to farm freshwater king salmon for domestic and international consumption.
It came about by a couple of very keen fishermen who were up here fishing in the canals, and one of them said, this might be a great place for a salmon farm. It had been done nowhere else in the world, and so they set about getting permission from the canal owner, which in those days was Electricorp, who said, yeah, that's not a problem, and decided to start on this location that we're at right now. It's the Ohau Canal. We basically had to start from scratch and learn by trial and error, and we had a lot of trial and error. The big issue with the canals here is basically learning to live with the hydraulic flows and how to build your structure to remain in the canal and keep the fish safe and prevent them escaping. And they were the learnings, and in the early days we thought what we had to do was try and beat the flow and not let it come into the raft, and we had all sorts of things in the canal, like a diverter that we put upstream to try and cut the flow down and things like that, and it took a while for the penny to drop that we're actually doing it all round the wrong way, and what we wanted to do was actually let as much flow as we could in through the raft. We're now operating on all of the canals in the Upper Waitaki system, so we're on the Tekapo Canal, we've got a small operation back here again on the Ohau Canal, and then a big proportion of the farm is on the Ohau B and C canals further downstream. And each one of those canals has a different operating set of parameters. Knowing how they work and when they're likely to be in flood and not in flood and low flows and things like that is part of learning how to work with the environment that we're in. So it's all looking pretty good. Have we got one more shipment left to go out of here?
Yep, they must be due to come out shortly, going down to Lower Benmore.
Oh, okay.
I was studying up in Tauranga. I did a marine science diploma and then a biology degree. This is the Ohau Hatchery, where we start the process of the fish, so we do all of the spawning and whatnot before they go out to the farms for the grow out. We spawn in around April, just like with the natural spawn. Then we incubate them inside the hatchery. From there they hatch. They come out here for the first feeding until they're about 20 grams. Our other hatchery it will be closer to 70 to 100 grams, and then they're sent out to the farms for the grow out. They're on the farm between 18 to 24 months typically, and in the hatchery it's around 6 months, so we're harvesting around that 2 year to 3 year, depending how long they're on the farm. The goal harvest weight's around 3.7 kgs. We can either feed to satiation, which is just feeding the fish until they're no longer interested, but to try and reduce the FCRs, the feed conversion ratios, we do have a, we call it feeding to table system. So what that is, it's just basically what we call an SFR, so a specific feed rate, and depending on the size of the fish and the goal, how much feed we want to give, we can work out how much feed that goes onto an aquanetics program which the farm managers use to determine how much feed to give their fish each day. Kind of a more scientific way to do it to reduce how much money we're spending on feed.
The space that we occupy, we lease that off for power companies. They have a number of criteria that we have to fulfil, and where we locate our farms are basically in areas of the canal where it's been formed by cutting and excavation. We can't occupy an area where it's been built up from the surrounding landscape. We have a very long association now from 1992. Our approach is we want to be here. We don't want to impact at all on what they are doing, and it's sort of like they don't even know we're here. That's sort of like the ultimate aim. Water quality is the key to salmon farming, and it's also the key for our environmental impacts. And while we have resource consent requirements to monitor water quality, we actually go far beyond that now, and we're monitoring things like underneath the rafts. We monitor areas outside of here as well so that we can keep an eye on the wider environment. And the biggest issue for virtually all of New Zealand freshwater is the amount of nitrogen that's discharged into the environment. It's a very unique environment, and that's what actually enables us to place our product on the international market as something at the absolute top. And the reason we believe is, number one, the flow. It looks benign at the moment where we are, and you can look at this. This is in fact a very large river. The average flow, for instance, on this canal is about 65, 70 cumex. On the other canals where the majority of the farm is, down the bottom, the average flow is 365 and can peak at 560. Now, 560 is 560,000 litres of water a second going past the farm. So the environmental advantage of that is very high oxygen content in the water. This is glacial sourced water from the mountains, and as it passes through some of the power stations and the intake structures, it actually gets aerated. So we end up with what is near a supersaturation O2 level. That's when everything's going well. But if the canal shuts down, then of course you start to lose some of that. And then the other environmental factor is water temperature. And I think we're very fortunate in some respects that the water temperature in summer is still well within the growth range, probably peaks around 18 degrees, but it is still carrying high loads of oxygen. In winter, our disadvantage is we drop out of the premium growth range and water drops below 8 degrees, so that's sort of like the point at where growth starts to be impacted by water temperature. And in a really good Mackenzie winter, we can get down to 5 and below. So it can be very, very cold. And in those circumstances, you know you're not going to get the same growth. So you don't get this year-round growth that you can achieve, say, in a sea farm. But you just have to cut back your feed and manage your fish stock accordingly. It's actually regarded as the best in the world. Now, I know that everybody can claim it's the best in the world, but the way we do that is we run blind taste tests with top chefs in America, and they pick ours out as saying that's the best. And one of the qualities is firmness, and the other quality, which is a really big advantage for us, is that you can freeze the fish and thaw it out and no one can tell the difference.